Hi everybody, it's Brenda Shepard with Rojas Roofing, and we're going to be talking about the 8 components of a roof today. These are the basic 8 components of a typical asphalt roof that you would find in the Midwestern area, Indiana in particular. And we're just going to go through each of the components and kind of give you a brief overview of what they are so that you can understand when you're reading an estimate or when you're trying to look at your own roof. We also have a blog post about this, so if you want to get a little bit more detail, go ahead and click on our blogs in our website. So we're going to be covering basically the components that you would see here, and we're going to go into detail on each one of them. So the first is your decking. So your decking is the wood that goes, on the frame of your house, and typically these days it's OSB sheets. They have to be a certain thickness, over 7/8 thick. And some of the older decking, you might see more of like this one here. This would be more of the boards, and older homes would have boards like that. And so what would cause your roof to need to be redecked? Well, as you can see in the first picture, if there's a lot of moisture, your boards will get delaminated, and we can't nail on that. It's not a stable surface. In the third picture, you see that we replaced individual boards. That might be because there's some rotting or something like that. The third time, or the third reason that you would need your roof redecked, and this would be like a full redeck, similar to the delamination situation, is if you have gaps. So if you have those 1x6s on your roof and they have gaps in between them, then we would need to redeck in order to have a nailable surface. So those are some things that might cause an additional cost on your roof, because redecking the entire thing can be a significant cost. So make sure that your roofer has inspected your attic to see if that might be a hidden cost that you wouldn't discover until you actually pulled the entire roof off. Another important component of your roof is your ice and water shield. And basically this is just like a big piece of tape, if you want to call it like that. It's got granules on it, and it basically seals itself to the actual decking. Like, we can't take it off when we, generally speaking, it's very hard to take off, I should say, if we're redoing a roof. So in the central Indiana region, this is a code for the valleys of your roof. So the valleys would be where two parts meet and they go in. It is not code in most of central Indiana to have it on your eave line, so where your gutters are. But we always try to put it there because it's really important for ice damming. So we get calls every February when that snowpack melts and then freezes again, and it creates an ice dam. So that ice and water shield is going to protect you against that. If you live in a northern Indiana region, that would be code, so make sure that your roofer is putting it on. All right, next is your drip edge and gutter apron. So this is just a thin piece of metal. It's also called flashing. It has a specific name, but it's basically all metal flashing. The drip edge goes on the rakes, so any part of your roof that's pointy, that's basically your rakes. And then also another slightly larger piece would go in between like where your gutters are, and it would essentially just lay over your gutters like this to create a protective barrier. So this is important. Not only is it code, but definitely important for the longevity of your roofing system. It prevents a lot of rotting on the wood, and we do see a lot of new construction that doesn't have this drip edge on it. And we also have occasionally had experiences where someone has installed a roof without it, and then we get a call, hey, can you put my drip edge on? Unfortunately, it's much harder to put on after your roof has been installed. So make sure it's on your estimate before you purchase. Okay, underlayment. Underlayment used to be like tar paper, was a more common thing that you would see that's like all black. These days, most roofing companies are putting on what's called a synthetic underlayment. And it's kind of like a very thin tarp, would be the best way to describe it. And it has a longer ability to be exposed to the elements in the event that your roofer isn't able to put your roof on as quickly. But that's your basically like a little barrier in between the shingles themselves and the decking. Okay, so one element that a lot of people don't think about is what's called a starter shingle. So this is a shingle that goes along the entire perimeter of your roof, and it basically starts the course of shingles. And it's specifically designed in order to create that adherence on the edges of your roof. So make sure your roofer got that as well. And then we're going to talk about the three basic types of shingles. So the three basic types of shingles that you would see in Indiana are 3-tabs. 3-tabs are easily identifiable because they basically look flat. So you can see in these pictures that they don't have a lot of dimension. They look flat. 3-tab shingles are generally like the lowest grade shingle you can get. It has a slightly lower wind resistance and just more like a 20-year shingle, generally speaking. The next grade up would be a dimensional shingle. Most roofers are putting dimensional shingles on new roofs these days. And you can see that it's basically the layers of shingle are layered on top of each other to create dimension. You can also see it called an architectural shingle because it provides, like I said, dimension or layers. So you can see in these photos some examples of what the dimensional shingle would be. And this is slightly higher, not slightly higher, kind of usually much higher wind rating. And in addition to that, they are more like a 30-year shingle. So if you are more interested in a higher grade shingle, sometimes they're called presidential shingle or a class 4 shingle. Not all presidential shingles are class 4 though, so be careful on that one. It's typically a thicker shingle or possibly a different material. So they could be made out of a polymer base, so like more of a synthetic rather than just like granules of asphalt. And they may come with a longer warranty. They may get you a break on your insurance because of a higher impact resistance rating. You may just like the look of them. So the first two pictures are an example of a high grade home that had a class 4 shingle that's like it looks like slate, but it's actually asphalt. And then that third picture there, that's a presidential shingle offered by GAF. So it's just a different look and typically like a higher grade shingle, depending on how you would like your roof to look. All right, it's really important that you have ventilation on your roof and that you only have one kind of ventilation on your roof. So there's two main types that you would see in Indiana. There's other types of ventilation that are more used in like hotter climates, but generally speaking, in central Indiana, you would find ridge vent, which essentially is a strip of vents that go along the top of your roof line. So you can see here it's running along the top, and then you can kind of see just a little hint there in that picture with the beautiful fall colors in the background. It's less ostentatious, it's less visible than the other kind of vent, which is a box vent. So box vents are generally aluminum and they run along the ridge line just like your roof line would. Most of the time we put them on the back so they're not as visible from the front of your house. And they are spaced about every 5 feet or so. And they provide the same type of ventilation, more or less, that a ridge vent would. It's just maybe not as attractive looking. And if you don't have the right number of those vents, you're definitely running the risk of possibly not having enough ventilation on your roof. So make sure that you talk to your roofer about the venting of your roof. It's very important. Okay, so we've got one more typical element, which is your hip and ridge shingles. So technically, you can take the 3-tab shingles, which are fairly flat, and then sort of cut them and put them on the hips and the ridges. So a ridge is where, remember we talked about the valley goes like this, so the ridge is the opposite, goes like this, or the hip is the opposite, goes like that. And so the top lines of any of the parts of your roof that go up. So you can do it like that. That's kind of a corner cost-cutting methodology, or you can actually purchase the shingles that are designed for your hips and ridges. And in the case of our manufacturer, they have a special amount of copper in them to prevent all that black algae streaks. Not all manufacturers necessarily have that, but they are an additional cost as compared to like just bending the 3 tabs, for example. And then I'm going to go with a bonus here. This is like component number 9. So if you have a chimney or you have other areas of your roof where like your siding meets your wall or something like that, you would have flashing, metal flashing. So metal flashing, well, there's 2 kinds, but the one we're talking about right now is your visible flashing. So that would be something that would prevent the water from getting underneath your shingles next to a sidewall penetration or a chimney penetration. So those are your basic components of a roofing system. If you have any specific questions about those components, obviously, please do ask your roofer. You can call Rojas Roofing and we'll be happy to talk to you all about them. Or you can read our blog, or if you don't live in Central Indiana, then yeah, contact your roofer. See you on the next one, guys.